Hello, friends. This is Bob Tarter with Animalogy, coming in to you from Animalogy Acres in southern Middle Tennessee for the summer reading program Tales and Tales, where we will be presenting tales our tales will tell behind the scenes. This is going to be a video set that will showcase the animal's natural history like we would see in a normal program for your public library, as well as how we house, care, and love for our animals. If you have any questions, you can always reach me online at animalogy.org, email bob@animalogy.org, or social media and Facebook at Animalogy. Again, this is Bob Tarter, and we're coming to you with our Tales Will Tell Summer Reading Program 2021 Behind the Scenes. Well, hello, friends. This is Bob Tarter again, and we have our first herbivore for today's program. This is the black-tailed prairie dog. They get that distinctive name because of that little black tip on the edge of their tail. And this is one of the most unique herbivores to discuss in today's lineup. A prairie dog is basically a squirrel that lives in a world where there's not very many trees. This is a ground-dwelling mammal. Now, the black-tailed prairie dog has an interesting history with us here in North America. Historically, they were found as far east as Arkansas, as far west as California, all the way up into Canada, down into Mexico. Unfortunately, nowadays, our black-tailed prairie dogs are only found in 4% of their natural historic range, and they're still thought of as a pest or a nuisance, and that's sad, because the greatest lesson this little animal can teach you is the keystone species. Now, if I'm talking to my friends from Clinton County, I know a lot of you have had the arch tour before, and the center part of an archway is called a keystone, and it holds the whole thing together. That's what we're looking at when we look at a little prairie dog. Now, prairie dogs are found in what is called a prairie dog town. The first time I found one, I was hiking through the desert badlands of North Dakota. I've been hiking for hours and I hadn't seen much of anything for wildlife. And I came up out of a drainage onto the flat part, and as far as I could see, I thought I just walked into a golf course. There was short, tender green grass and holes with rodents running all the way around. And it was a prairie dog town. It was full of life. Because when you're this big, there's going to be lots of things that are going to try and eat you. So the prairie dogs are the keystone species because they change the ecosystem in the sense that they make it better. Now, one of the reasons why they're not liked is these guys dig a lot of holes, and these prairie dog towns have multiple entrances and exits. Now, they mow the grass. They keep the grass short and tender because when you're this big, there's a lot of things that can eat you. So if you keep the grass short, you'll be able to see farther and see predators. Now, also, these will attract our other herbivores. So the first prairie dog town I hiked into, I found prairie dogs, jackrabbits, antelope, deer, all the way up to 3,000-pound bison. All of these herbivores are there because the prairie dogs make the habitat. They change it. When the grass gets too tall and dry, it's not very nutritious. So these animals keep it very short and tender. And that makes it better for them because that is going to attract other herbivores, which then allows the prairie dog towns to expand. Abandoned prairie dog towns are key nesting sites for two North American endangered species. The black-footed ferret and gopher tortoise use the abandoned prairie dog towns for nesting sites. So the prairie dogs are an important animal, but with domesticated livestock, if they go running through a prairie dog town, they're going to fall in a hole and break their leg. So that's why the prairie dogs have been removed to only 4% of their natural historic range because of mankind, and they're still thought of as a nuisance. Now, the prairie dog is going to affect it by keeping that vegetation short, which attracts all the herbivores. If all the herbivores are there, then we're going to have our carnivores, foxes, coyotes, wolves, and raptors. And all these animals are going to be feeding on the slow, the infirm, and they keep the populations healthy. But prairie dogs are keystone species even to us humans because in the desert, whenever it rains, it's going to rain a lot. It may not rain often, but when it rains a lot, usually very quickly. And without the soil and the vegetation we have, the water runs, it erodes, it takes the water and the soil away, and it is going to pollute the rivers. There'll be runoff in that. But when you have a prairie dog town and it rains, the water then runs into the tunnels and it goes underneath the soil. The prairie dogs build their towns to handle this. And our prairie dogs are helping us out because then that water will slowly soak into the groundwater, recharging the aquifer. A prairie dog town in Montana can actually help somebody get well water from the aquifer down in Arizona. That's what we've proven with radioisotopes. So these are a very helpful animal, but people have thought of them as a nuisance because of the livestock damage or building damage to them. Now, the prairie dog towns were massive. The largest one we have on record was 3 miles wide from east to west and 7 miles long from north to south. Don't eat my button, please. And so that is a huge water collection basin, as well as prairie dogs spend all day long running below the surface soil to the top, below to the top, below to the top. And they take that cool, moist air from below the surface of soil to the top, where they then exhale. This allows the prairie dog towns to help seed rain clouds. Sometimes our rainfall is started by a bunch of prairie dog breath in Oklahoma. That's what's so cool about this as a keystone species. They help us all out. Our prairie dogs, during our programs, to keep them happy, I generally have to give them the massage. And whenever we give them the massage, they tend to do their yoga. That's upside down dog. So they're very relaxed during our programs like this. But the thing to learn most, I think, about a prairie dog, besides the keystone species and how they feed and house other animals, is one prairie dog by themselves will not be able to survive. They have to live together in that community, in that collective. And that's going to help us understand during these trying times, we need to help each other out and give each other support if we need it. And that's what's important, the lesson to learn from this keystone species here. So this is our black-tailed prairie dog. They're getting a little old. They're about 5 years old for us right now. So they're definitely on the geriatric edge of things. So they're not as active as they are when they're young for us. So the black-tailed prairie dog is going to be able to be that herbivore that is going to change that plant material from the solar radiation that we got, converted into plant tissue, so from that plant tissue into that animal protein, where other animals will feed from them. So black-tailed prairie dog, a keystone species, an important animal to learn about in these trying times, that we can take a lesson from helping our own communities out. Hello friends, this is Bob Tarter with our next herbivore in our Rabbits to Raptors program. This is definitely a rabbit. Now this is a giant Flemish rabbit. This is not a rabbit we would find in the wild. It's not like the prairie dogs. This is a domesticated creature. Now to come up with a domesticated animal, we captured our animals from the wild. We raised them in captivity for generations. And then we were able to then come up with a domesticate. And so we have different traits that we select for that. Now the giant Flemish little Bun Bun here is only about 7 months old. When he's full grown, he can be from his nose down his spine to the tip of the tail over 31 inches in length. So that is a very large rabbit. The record is actually over 51 inches. Now, the giant Flemish rabbit was bred in Belgium as early as the 1860s. And at that point in time, this animal was used for two things. One is this amazing fur coat. And what we're going to illustrate with him is the characteristics that make our mammals mammals. Number one is hair. Now, mammals have to have hair or fur, even though we may not always have it. You all know Mr. Bob. I've been losing my hair for years, but we have to have hair or fur at some point in our lives. And the next one is live birth. Little Bun Bun here was born and bred in a captive breeding facility just a little bit south of where I am right now as a show rabbit. And with that, he was not able to participate in the show circuit as a breed standard. His normal right ear looks just fine. His left ear has a little bit of damage, and because of that, he wasn't able to be shown as a giant Flemish rabbit due to that infirmity. But he does fine as a programming animal with us. So we have hair. He was born alive. The next one is going to be why his ear is a little damaged. When he was young, probably one of his brothers and sisters were trying to nurse off his ears, causing that damage. And that's because our mammals feed their babies milk. Live birth, having hair, mama feeds you milk. Last characteristic, and it's of course important on days when the sun is out like that, is we are warm-blooded. Underneath his fur, you can definitely tell he's warm, and we maintain our own body temperatures. A warm-blooded creature for us. Now, the giant Flemish was bred for this fur and the meat at this point in time. These get to be rather large rabbits, and you can get a fair amount of fur and a fair amount of meat off of them. But nowadays, their new job is basically just for exotic animals. Now, the giant Flemish has some breed standards. One of them is their head and their spine are very flat until it comes to this back ham, the back spine, and then it's going to curl up here by these back legs. They have that very cute little face right there. He always looks like the Cadbury bunny. He's an extremely calm, docile one, and these will actually make very good therapy animals. He will sit in the seat in my car next to me or sit in a lap for hours on end. So they're a very calm, docile rabbit for us. Now, when we think about this, the prairie dogs, the rabbits, these are the herbivores that are then taking that plant material from photosynthesis, and they are able then convert it into animal protein to tissues, and that's where the rest of the consumers, as we go higher up, the higher in the ecosystem we go, the more food we're going to need to have from that sun. Every time you climb a trophic level, we're going to lose 90% of that energy. An animal has to find that food, eat it, digest it, convert it into protein. So the higher level ecosystems, the higher consumers are going to require more area for us. So that's the difference. So a domesticated animal like this living in captivity with you should do fine. But as a big rabbit, he's going to eat more. He's going to drink more. And with that, he's going to pee more. He's certainly going to poop more. So if you want to have a giant Flemish, I recommend you litter box train them. They do very well with that training because of that extra amount of food that they're going to eat because they're a big animal. They are prone to back issues with this spine like that. So you got to get them at a young age and handle them properly so that they don't hurt themselves. So the giant Flemish rabbit is our second herbivore for our Rabbits to Raptors program. In captivity, you're going to have to keep these rabbits inside. They cannot handle too high a temperatures outside. So you need to be able to have an indoor housing for them. And as a larger bunny, they're going to need more space. So if you want to get one of these, you need to have almost a room set aside for them. This little guy here has done very well and adapted to living in our home with the rest of our animals. He doesn't really think he's a rabbit. He actually thinks he's one of the dogs and gets up on the dog beds with our Labradors here at Animalogy Acres. So the giant Flemish rabbit, our domesticated rabbit, that is a wonderful, calm, easygoing exhibit to learn that these herbivores are going to be able to change that plant tissue into something that the rest of us consumers can take for us. So the giant Flemish is recognized in 7 different colors. So you can have this slate color as well as 6 other ones for you. So if you're interested in getting a rabbit, these are the most calm, docile that I've been able to work with, although they do get big. So you need to have a specific area set aside for them. All right, friends, this is Bob Tarter and
Catherine Tarter.
For the behind the scenes of our Tales Will Tell, Catherine is going to do the nightly ritual of feeding little Bun Bun tonight. So he has a large enclosure here in our warm room, but at nighttime we put him in his little kennel, and he has a large area there where he can use the restroom. He has on top of his kennel that Catherine will give him. You got to put the bowls in there first, honey. On top of his kennel, he has his mixture of formulated rabbit food with good leafy kale and tomatoes and apples and a nice bowl of water. Now, during the day when we have him supervised, he has a lot more room. But like we always told you, the giant Flemish rabbit is a large rabbit, and he tends to wander around. And being a rabbit, he tends to be a nocturnal creature. And I can tell you honestly, this little bugger here has actually done a little bit of property damage on some of our wires around the house. He hasn't chewed on the walls or anything like that, but he likes to chew on the plastic coating wires of some of our equipment around here. So at nighttime, this is basically the normal ritual for little Bun Bun. When I wake up in the morning, we let him roam around. He has a small enclosure that he lives in overnight, but during the day, he has a much larger enclosure, the room that we're in right now with Catherine. This is the same room that we use with lots of our baby animals. This is the room where Charlotte whelped all of her puppies. Back in December, we raised our baby chickens in here. So it is a very cool, calm, easygoing place for a bunny like that to go ahead and chill out. So this is Bun Bun, the giant Flemish rabbit, in his nighttime enclosure. All right, friends, we're for the nighttime ritual with our black-tailed prairie dogs. Miss Catherine is going to help me introduce our 3 prairie dogs back into their enclosure for their nighttime activities. We have Shauna that is going to go inside. We have Tracy that is going to go inside. And then we have Jezebel that is going to go inside. Now you can see the prairie dogs there have a multi-tiered container. They have their bottled water on the back. They are right now eating. Sorry if the camera's going to get a little shaky. They're eating their formulated diet of rodent pellets. That gives them all the fortification and the nutrients that they need. They're very cute and they love to eat. Now, the one thing you will notice on the cage, there is a lot of tooth marks because these, as rodents, tend to chew on things. So that's why we have to give them plenty of boxes to chew on, and that helps them. Now, with a rodent as a ground-dwelling one, the black-tailed prairie dogs, we have a multi-level one here that will serve to give them the ability to climb up and down. Lots of cardboard boxes to be able to give them the ability to chew, and the exercise wheel on the top. But when we look at our little prairie dogs, these little girls here are getting older in age, so I'm not too worried about them getting overweight because I want them to enjoy the rest of their lives. So we give them as much of the rodent pellets, but in that little bowl, they have sweet potatoes, they got apples, they got kale, they got carrots, and they get to eat as much as they want as they get in their later stages of life force. So you can see they're very easy in their enclosures for us. As a desert animal, they don't require all that much water, but we have to give them the ability to exercise. We have one more of them hidden down there in the bottom. I can't even see her right now. But you'll be able to see that they enjoy their pellets. Doesn't everybody like a good little pellet to eat? So here is our geriatric black-tailed prairie dogs enjoying the later stages of their life as a programming animal. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed the video of the behind the scenes for our black-tailed prairie dogs and the Angora rabbit. Catherine is going to be able to help me out with any animal care. Say goodbye to all of our virtual friends.
Bye.
And we will see you all in the future as Bun Bun is finishing his food for the night. Well, friends, we have one of our newest exhibits here. This is Quentin. This is an animal that, again, we're going higher and higher in the ecosystem. This is certainly a carnivore. With a beak like that, he's not going to be eating grass. He's not going to be eating seeds from a bird feeder. Do you think he'd want to eat the prairie dogs? Yes, he would. Would he want to eat the rabbit? Yes, he would. Would he eat snakes and lizards? You bet. This is a bird not found here in North America. He has a cousin that is found here. And the important lesson to learn on this exhibit is that everything in the nature has a job, and that is called a niche. And once you're able to identify by looking at an animal in their niche, you can travel around and see other animals filling that same job, that same role. His cousin is one that is a very common one we can see here. He's still a little nervous. He's never been on a camera like this, so that's why he's holding his wings out like that. He's trying to look intimidating. But this is actually the same genus but different species of our red-tailed hawk, one of the most commonly seen birds of prey that we share our world with. Now you can see his niche, his job. He has two eyes on the front of his head, and he's staring at me because he's actually only been with me for about a week. So he hasn't done programs as much as the other ones. And he's holding out those wings, showing you that white color there to look as large and in charge and intimidating as possible. But the two eyes on the front of the head is going to show you that we're definitely looking at a carnivore. This is an animal that eats only other things. Now, it is called the buto. In Europe, Asia, Africa, down in the Middle East and Asia, they also go by the common name, the common buzzard. I don't really like the term buzzard. It doesn't give a good connotation. Now, with our birds of prey, oh yes, we have the vultures, and they serve that important niche for us. But what we have here is a very wide-ranging predator that will eat lots of different prey sources. He will eat insects, he will eat grasshoppers, he'll eat big bugs, he will eat snakes, he'll eat lizards, he'll eat small mammals, which is most of his food. He will eat birds, he will eat game birds. And that's why they're not looked upon too nicely over in Europe, where they have pheasants. Now, the pheasant is, again, one of our exotic invasive birds, and they have been turned loose on preserves over there to have them for a hunt. where these guys here will take advantage of that. Now, he has excellent vision. Now, the way his wings are, you can see it's a wide wing. This is actually a broad-winged hawk. This is right between one of our red-tailed hawks that we have in your natural world and one of the sharp-shinned hawks, which is going to be a little bit smaller and faster for us. Now, he's going to sit in an elevated position in a tree or a power line or a telephone pole and scanning around for food. And when he finds that food, he'll fly down on top of it and grab a hold of it with these talons here. This behavior of opening the wings, you can see. What this does is this is going to help him. He'll land in the grass. He may not always be sure that he's got the prey by the talons, or even if it is mortally wounded. So he'll cover it up with his wings like that and his tail, and then he makes like almost a protective dome over it. And then that will be able to give him a chance to get his prey. Now, even though he's fast, when we think about our predators, more often than not, they're not catching their food, so they have to hunt often, and they require a large calories to do this. Some successful hunters are only good for about 4% of their prey. So that's where when we think about the cheetah, the fastest land mammal, doesn't always get its food. And that's where the predators keep things in check and balance for us. Now, this is, like I said, an exotic bird of prey. He's found in Europe, Asia, Africa. They have several different subspecies of them, and that's because they will be blending into the background. You can see he's got the nice dark color on him, that nice pattern, which is going to give him camouflage to sit still. And then he will be able to ambush his prey by grabbing a hold of it during daylight hours. This is what we call our diurnal animal, most active at daylight and dusk. That's going to be the key to how his niche is going to be specific. He is going to be a daytime predator. Now, with him being an exotic bird of prey, we have different rules and regulations for our native birds of prey. So Q here is just a year old. He was raised by his parents. He actually came from a captive breeding program on a Comanche reservation in Oklahoma. So he's learning how to be our programming animal. But what we'll be able to do is use him as a multi-use animal for us. He'll be able to do our educational programs as well as Q when we get a good level of trust and companionship. This will be a falconry bird for me. So I could walk through wooded areas or ag fields and fence rows, and if I find a squirrel or a rabbit, I can throw him up in the air, and then he will use his instincts to fly after it and attack it and kill it for me. Now what that does is then he will have to allow me to take it. Now, that's a big level of trust. I have to feed him every day, but then he can hunt for me. And that's where the flying weight is very important. If he's not very hungry, he's not going to be able to fly for me or fly training. And that's the misnomer. Everybody sits there and talks about when you're working with lions or tigers or sharks or something like that. And they're like, I hope they're not hungry. Actually, you want these animals hungry because they work for their food. And they get their food from their handlers. So if they're not hungry, then they're more unpredictable for us. So this is Q. Quentin, our buto from Europe, Asia, down into Africa. Multiple different subspecies of them, depending on their niche for us. That beautiful color there, those nice sharp talons on his feet, grab a hold of that prey. And when you look at his sense of smell, he does not have much of one. And that's where they get that common name, common buzzard. This guy here will, when the opportunity arises, he will eat carrion, C-A-R-R-I-O-N. It's just a polite way of saying roadkill or a gut pile. They will do that as well as our birds of prey do. And that's why sometimes you can see birds on the side of the road. They were flying across the road, maybe going after a mouse that was eating some spilled grain, and they get hit by that. Or sometimes they're eating carrion on the side of the road, and when they fly up, they get hit by a vehicle from there. But all of our birds of prey are federally protected species, so you have to have the correct license and permits to be able to exhibit them. Now, he's a beautiful bird, and he's calming down here a little bit. I wish you'd hold that left wing in. But in time, he will be just as calm as my other birds. He's just still new to us. You watch him when he blinks. He has an extra set of eyelid called the nictitating membrane that will protect his eyes when he's flying through the brush or when he's trying to kill something. He doesn't want to get it scratched or hurt because that eyesight is how he's going to find his food. Quentin, the buto from Europe, Asia, down into Africa. Do you have anything else you want to say to anybody?
Hello friends, this is Bob Tarter
And Catherine Carter.
with Animalogy for one of our behind the scenes of our Tales Will Tell. Here is our 1-year-old buto Q, or Quentin. Now again, he has a little hutch there that keeps him out of the wind and the rain, but with our birds, most of the housing that they always need is just going to be their feathers. We just helped them shelter from it. He's got his bow perch and his water bowl right here. He's outside. You can hear Elle behind. They are very used to seeing the natural songbirds in the area. Catherine just threw him his little mouse, and he can grab it. Now, he's not the big enough as Elle to swallow him whole. So you'll be able to watch it with his feet here. He will actually tear it into pieces. Oh, you missed it. It's still down there on the ground, son. There you go. Now you got it. So he will actually have to use his feet to hold on to it and tear it into pieces. See, he doesn't have a big enough mouth to swallow it whole like Elle does. And again, I'm sorry. I think the raptors are a little shy of eating on camera. We have had some good success with the last ones with our lizards eating on camera. Except for, I guess, Larry the iguana didn't. But our Gila monsters did very well. Go ahead, Q. So our hawk enclosures are called mews. There, you can see him. He's going to tear it up here in a second. Are nestled up against the woods, and we actually got a nice summer thunderstorm about to roll through. So I wanted to get this filming done as soon as possible. Now Q has just wrapped up his molt. He is doing a few new tail feathers for him. And this is the same genus as our red-tailed hawk, but he's actually in the same area of Europe, Asia, and Africa like our eagle owl is. Hi, buddy. Now, the way we have our birds, they have permanent anklets on that run to jesses. The jesses run to a swivel, and then that leash. What that does is that helps my birds stay safe. And the cage around them is basically to keep any stray cats or skunks or things away from them. This is how we use our birds so that they can see as much as they can. There you go. You got a good old bite down. I thought you were going to tear that up. Now you can see how the mouse still is kind of in the front of them in what is called the crop. And that's where they have a different digestion system than us. They have a pre-stomach, and then they go from there. Catherine threw his other one. He'll grab it and take it back up to safety. Where the eagle owl, because they're such a big, powerful predator, they tend to just eat straight on the ground because they're not terribly worried about somebody else messing with them at night. Where his natural instinct there is to grab his food and get off the ground. You can see how well his colorations blend into that weathered wood there. You can see how he's using that flesh-tearing beak right there to tear it into pieces. And again, yes, we are feeding carnivores, so there's blood and guts and viscera on these videos. But these animals can only digest and survive on that protein. They're not going to be able to eat cellulose-based plant material. That means he's a little happy. There, he's actually wiping his beak off on his nails and on the bow on that horizontal perch. That one I think you threw a little too far. Okay, throw it between, try and make it between, on the other side of the bow perch by the water pan, because that's on camera. Good job. And this is how he would use his hunting style, being in an elevated position. We'll wait. As you can see, he's not quite as hungry because these are extra large mice and he's a smaller bird than Elle, but we want them to be fat and happy during programming time. So friends, I want to thank you all very much. Don't worry, Q will get that last mouse there in the corner once we step away from camera, I'm sure. Hope you've enjoyed our behind the scenes of Animalogy, Summer Reading 2021. Our tales will tell.
This is Elle, my Eurasian eagle owl. If anybody is a fan of Stranger Things, her nickname is 11 for that character. This is one of the largest owl species on the planet. Now this one right here is just a little hangry at the moment. She's fine. Can you please look at the camera? Thank you. Now, like Quentin, this is one where we're looking at the niche. Same look as our great horned owl, but this animal is of a different species. This is, again, England, east all the way through Europe, through Asia, up into Siberia, down to the Middle East and India, all the way into Africa. I know. And here's the interesting thing about the Eurasian eagle owl. Most of the owls used in the Harry Potter franchise were this species. They're easier to train, easier to work with. Now, they had different colors and sizes because of where they're found in their natural habitat. The gray or the darker colors are going to be in the thicker woods, where this brown color is going to be found in a more agricultural grassland steppe area. Now, for our owl, you can see this is a big girl. I'm even going to rest my arm a little bit. She's getting heavy. And people will estimate her to be anywhere from 20 to 25 pounds. I don't want to hold that much weight. This is my biggest bird, and she only weighs about 6 pounds right now. Birds are nothing but feathers. I'm not even touching skin when we get into there. So for a 6-pound animal, she has large eyeballs. I know. If you look, they're bigger than mine, and I weigh over 200 pounds now. I know. She has these large eyes that are going to help her see extremely well in the darkness of night. But the interesting thing about her eyes, if you notice, her eyes will never move. If you had owl-sized eyeballs in your head, you would have dodgeballs for eyeballs. And if you had dodgeball-sized eyeballs in your head, you'd all look a little funny. But if you hold your head still, you can look up to the sky, down to the ground, left and right. We have 6 muscles to move our eyes up, down, left, and right. When you look at Elle here, her eyes will never move. There's no muscles to move them. Because if you had owl-sized eyeballs, dodgeball-sized eyeballs in your head and the muscles to move it, your head would be so big and heavy it couldn't stay in your neck. It'd fall off your neck and be behind you. So the owl's eyes will never move. Instead, does she have a flexible neck? Yes. Now, all mammals have 7 vertebrae in their neck. Doesn't matter if you're a blue whale or a giraffe. Mammals have 7 vertebrae, where birds like her are going to have 14. So that gives her a much larger range of motion. Now, having flexible muscles does not mean they're going to be any bigger or heavier. And that's going to be the key. So she can rotate her head 210 degrees. She cannot spin it all the way around. It would pop off. But her eyesight is good. And again, you can see that nictating membrane. Hold still, honey. This call here is just what she does. This is different than Quentin in that she's a human imprint. She came to live with me when she was just 14 days old. And she's just telling me that, nah, that's her telling me she's hungry. But when we look at her eyes, the eyes will never move, but the head is going to be able to rotate. You can see that extra set of eyelid, that nictating membrane, which is going to be able to protect that eye. Now, owls are going to be different than Quentin. This is going to be a nocturnal animal for us, so sleeping during the day, awake and active at nighttime. So she's going to be sitting still. Now, I've seen owls survive in the wild with only one functioning eye because owls actually find their food by their sense of hearing. These feathers here, those are just feathers. They make her look more fierce. And on a male, they'll actually be almost twice this size. Now, raptors, the females are bigger than the males. So they got to sit on the nest and take care of it, where the males don't have to be that big. Now, it's different with turkeys, but with our birds of prey, females are always going to be bigger. The ears that you can see are these feathers around the eyes. Every other feather is flat and used for camouflage, even all the way down to her toes. No, you don't need to eat my finger. They're covered their entire body with feathers because that is going to be silencing material. But the ears are these little crescent shapes that you can see. And those feathers actually look like frost or a snowflake. And what they will do is she has one ear hole high and one ear hole low by that flesh-tearing beak. And sometimes you see that owl do that little head bob dance. What that's doing is that is allowing her to listen to a single spot. She doesn't really hear my voice or the wind chimes or anything else. She's only hearing where she's looking. And that's going to be the key. The owl will sit still using their camouflage and sit still in the darkness of night. And she can hear food. She can hear something like a mouse move at over 150 yards. And she waits for it to make a mistake. And as soon as it makes a mistake, she's going to fly after it. This bird here has a 6-foot wingspan. And that's how she's going to be able to fly after her prey. She doesn't fly fast. She flies silently and grabs a hold of them with these huge talons here. She can do over 300 pounds of pressure per square inch with these talons. So she can kill prey larger than herself. And that's typically what they'll do. They'll kill large prey, eat the good parts of it, and then leave the rest for scavengers. Now, same genus as our great horned owl, but a different species. And that's the key to understanding that niche or that job. Now, Elle here is used as an education bird, and she's also a multi-use like Q, in that we use her in abatement. If we have an orchard, a vineyard, or a landfill, and you have noxious things coming in, you can spray chemicals or put up noisemakers. That's not going to work. If you have me come with her and I fly her around, if you have noxious birds coming and they're bothering things, I can bring her as a falconer and we fly her around and she will chase away the prey animals just by the presence of her alone. She's a very silent flyer. This is the ninja of the animal world. Now, the expression wise old owl isn't true at all. Owls are not terribly intelligent. They don't have to be. Because owls are very good at one thing, and that one thing is killing. And they are phenomenal predators for that. She can kill prey up to 40, 45 pounds with those powerful talons. Now, like Quentin, again, there's not much of a sense of smell. And here in North America, the great horned owl is one of our greatest predators. But whenever we get them in rehab, they generally smell or stink of a skunk. Because if you can't smell a skunk, that's another nocturnal animal that's black and white, walking around at nighttime, and nobody else eats them. So they're not very picky for that. But her eyesight is good, but her hearing is even better. And that's how she's going to find that food source. She listens to it, waits for it to make a mistake, and then it will fly, power, 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 and then glide up to it. And the first thing that's going to get to those prey is these talons where she grabs a hold of them.
Hello, friends. This is Bob Tarter
And Catherine Tartar.
with Animalogy here for the behind the scenes. We got Elle here ready for her evening meal. You can see the extra feathers that are around inside her enclosure here. All right, we'll just feed you first. Now, what you're going to see with her is she has that big mantling behavior when she opens it up. You can see the one feather on the right wing that is a little bit sticking out. She's molting right now, so she's changing her feathers. Now, this behavior, she's bowing up. The camera is making her a little nervous, and so she's kind of looking at that. But you can see most of her home is her feathers. Now, further up on that enclosure, she can get out of the wind and the rain, and she hunkers down even in the coldest weather. She does well because this owl here is from all the way up into Siberia. She's got her water tank over there. Now, you can see she swallows her prey whole. And she is zyadactyl, to where she has 2 toes in the front, 2 toes on the back. Now, as she gets a little bit fuller, she's not going to be as aggressive towards eating. But when she's molting like this, her daily requirements for calories definitely increase. So she's getting fed tonight 4 extra large pre-killed frozen thawed mice that are dusted with a vitamin for her. And like I said, she's just a little shy of the camera right now, so that's why she's off it a little bit. I'm going to wait for her to finish that last one, and then we'll give her her last mouse for the day. Well, we may have to go feed our other raptor for the evening. Now, when she's going through the molt, that's when we feed her here in her enclosure. Because she's such a big owl and so strong, I don't feed her from glove because I don't want to have any damage. So she either has to fly to earn her food, but when she's going through the molt like this, I don't want to have too much energy required of it. And we're going to show you a video of how Catherine helps me train Elle in a flying shortly after we get done with this. Are you going to finish that last one? You got one more sitting here. Actually, wait, that was 4 already. So that is her last one for tonight. All right, friends, thank you for tuning in. We're going to pop off here and go to the next enclosure to show you our next bird of prey.
Hello, everyone. This is Bob Tarter
And Catherine Tartar.
from Animalogy. Catherine, what are some of your favorite things you get to do here on the farm?
Raptor babies and train them with my daddy.
Who? Hello, friends. This is Bob Tarter with Animalogy. We have Larry the Green Iguana here for one of our behind-the-scenes summer reading program 2021, Our Tales Will Tell Our Tale. Now, Larry here is the Green Iguana, and there's a lot of interesting things to learn from him. The first thing to notice on him is when he looks at the camera, you can see his eyeballs are right on the sides of his head, right there. You can see the eyeballs on the side of the head, and that's going to tell you that Larry is going to be one of our consumers that eats only plant tissue. This is our herbivore. An herbivore is a consumer that eats only plant tissue. Vegetarian and vegans are humans that consume non-animal products by their own personal choice. This guy cannot help it. He can only eat vegetable material for us. Now, one of his cool animal adaptations to be able to survive is the eyes that are on the side of the head that gives him a larger field of view, being able to see where a potential predator can come from. Now, if a predator comes up from the side, the first thing they're going to notice is a specialized form of mimicry. Now, the belly, the ventral surface, of course, has that mimicry, that light and green pattern there. That looks like light filtering through the sun canopy where he's going to be. Because you got to understand, Larry here is a cold-blooded animal. If you can feel him right now, he's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Myself, I'm about 97. I always run a little bit colder. Now, he's only going to be as warm as the environment around allows. The warmer he is, the faster he can move, the more food he can eat. And with our boy Larry, the faster he is, the more he can eat, the more he can grow. Now, when he wakes up in the morning, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to go ahead and sit in that sunlight. He'll climb out of wherever he spent the night, and he's going to absorb that solar radiation. I have to have that first cup of coffee to get that second cup of coffee to get my day started. And that's what our little iguana is going to do. They're going to sit there, and they are going to warm their bodies up. And when they're warming their body up, they'll be able to move faster. They're going to be able to eat more. They're going to be able to do more. So as soon as he warms up his body, then he'll go out and he'll forage for food. And when he's foraging for that food, he eats vegetable material, plant matter. And once his stomach is full, he climbs as high as he can into the tree canopy, getting into that direct solar radiation. And that will be able to keep him warm, so he'll be able to digest. So if a predator comes underneath of him while he's sitting high in the tree canopy, he's going to stay hidden from below because of that style of mimicry. That is when an animal is trying to blend into the background. Now, if a predator comes to them from the side, the first thing they're going to see when they get close enough is look at that little circle right there. That is called ocelus, that little circle right there. That's when an animal has a body marking to look like the eye of a larger predator. So he's sitting high in the tree canopy, absorbing solar radiation. A predator kind of comes up to him from the side. They will pause and they will sit there and think, wait, am I hunting Larry or is somebody bigger hunting me? And when that predator pauses, that's when these guys will make their escape. They'll be 90 feet in the tree canopy, and he jumps out of the tree, and he'll fall down through the tree canopy. These long fingers and toes grab at the vegetation as they're falling. As they fall down through the tree canopy, they'll grab a hold of another tree limb or vine, and he'll climb back up again. And he will avoid predators like that. Now, if a predator comes over the top of him, he has this very cool animal adaptation. I want to make sure I get that on camera. Right above my finger, you can see that little oval shape. There's a little oval shape right on front of that head. And that's right above his brain. And what that is a light sensing organ. Now, if he is high in the tree canopy, he's hidden from predators underneath because of the mimicry. He scares predators from the side because of ocelus. But if a predator comes over the top of him, what happens is he will become aggressive. When I took that shade over the top of him, you can see he opened his mouth and he gets aggressive. But we're still inside, and look what happens. Larry falls asleep. This little guy here, when he's cold and I cover up that little light sensing organ, he falls right to sleep. Larry. That is how these animals will be able to protect themselves. If he's out in the natural light, in the natural world, and a predator flies over the top of him, Larry, can you stay awake? I'm not that boring. If a predator comes over the top of them, they will actually become aggressive. But when we do indoor programs and it's cold for Larry here, he'll actually just fall right to sleep. Don't you wish children had that same animal adaptation? Or even adults. I'd love it to where if I got a little tired and need to go to sleep, I could just cover up my head and go right to sleep for us. Larry. So he has a very interesting tail. This tail right here, you can see how long it is. The tail on him can be used as a weapon, and he can smack things that he doesn't want to have around it. But Larry was donated to us by a family that couldn't take care of him properly, and they didn't give him correct housing. And he actually has a degenerative bone disease. He cannot use his tail like normal, which makes him important for me as a programmer now, because he cannot hit me as hard as a normal iguana can. This tail right here has a very specific ridge, and that ridge right there, if you go against it, it'll actually open up my skin and I'll start bleeding. But it can be used as a weapon to chase other predators away, as well as if he actually gets caught by a predator. If one of them gets a hold of it, he can actually senesce his tail, meaning his tail falls off. Now, if his tail falls off, it's no longer connected to that central nervous system. It's going to be thwacking around on the ground, squirting blood everywhere. That will then give him the ability to run away, and the predator will go after the tail. He can regenerate that tail. Now, if we pull your arms off, you can't grow a new one, but he has that ability to regenerate that tissue for him. So that's what is cool about his tail. It's used as a weapon, as well as a way to escape a predator if he gets a hold of him. Now, Larry is also one of these that is an exotic and invasive. An exotic is used to describe something that's not normally found around here. For you to best understand and learn the term invasive, think about yourselves. Think if you have a little brother or sister, and you can remember a time before you had them. It was a happier time, don't you think? They take things from you. They're invasive. They could be time with mom and dad, food at the dinner table, even Christmas presents. And the green iguana is an exotic invasive here in the states of Florida and Georgia. These animals are not supposed to be here. These animals escaped from the wild because of a warehouse that got knocked down during a hurricane. Sometimes people let their pets go, and most of the time they're not going to be able to survive. You're looking at about a 1.5% survival rate. But if a warehouse gets knocked down and thousands of these animals escaped in the wild, they will survive and be able to regenerate. And that's where we have an issue. Exotic invasives do a lot of damage to the natural world. Most of the time when these animals are captured, they're euthanized, but we have a couple in our collection that were captured by herpetologists, and they were run through an anti-parasitic program, and now they live with us as animal ambassadors versus being euthanized or put down so they can serve for us. Now, the green iguana can be a very big lizard. They can get up to 12 to 14 feet in length. You're looking at something that can be up to 25 years, 30 years in captivity. So not your average animal to have on a pet. You can see most of his body is in that tail length, and that'll be used as that weapon, or if a predator grabs a hold of him, he will be able to senesce it and drop the tail. He has the third eye on the top of the head where he gets a little grumpy, but you can see he goes right to sleep whenever I cover it up. He has the large dewlap here. This is going to help him look bigger, makes his body outline look bigger to intimidate other males, as well as females will be looking for males with bigger things, and that helps him pass on his lines. Now, the green iguana is one of these animals, exotic and invasive, common in the pet trade, not something to think of as an ideal pet. They get very big, and they tend to live long if you take care of them properly. And the tail on this animal, the tail that will tell you, is this is how he can protect himself as well as avoid predation for us. So we will then go to our next exhibit, and you'll be able to see more of the care of Larry, the green iguana, one of the Animalogy animal ambassadors that we have in our collection. Hello, friends. This is again our behind the scenes of the Summer Reading 2021. Our Tails Will Tell Our Tale. And what we're going to do here is we're going to feed Larry, the green iguana. Now, Larry is in a smaller enclosure than what we would normally have for a green iguana like this. Because of his degenerative bone disease, I don't give him the altitude, the height that he normally would need as a green iguana, because I don't want his bones to break if he would fall from something like this. So what we have right here is a large, wide container. We have our light with UVA, UVB wavelength on both the heat light as well as the dome light, and a large body of water for him to climb into. They do enjoy the water. So when we put our food bowl in here with Larry, it's a mixture of kale, sweet potatoes. It's got apples and oranges. Why aren't you going to eat? Everybody wants to watch you eat. Come on, eat, son. Larry is very accustomed being in here, and I guess he's a little shy because he doesn't want to look like he's an overeater. But this guy here will probably eat that whole bowl tonight without any problem. Before I go to bed, I shut off the lights so that he can have his normal daylight and dawn, timeline. So we give him about 12 hours on, 12 hours off. But with him being programming, his schedule's a little off for us. And he will be able to consume his food whenever he's ready. And apparently he's not going to eat right now for you. But we feed him a wide variety of vegetable material. It's dark leafy greens of kale, sweet potato, apples, orange, bananas. We had grapes in there, watermelon. He likes to eat a lot of the brightly colored fruits for us. So I'm sorry if you hear any other background noise. That's the prairie dogs. You know that they have their own enclosure just to the right of here. This is the Animalogy Acres basement section that we store all of our animals in. So with our animals, they have a climate controlled and relative humidity controlled environment. And that keeps them happy and healthy so that they can be wonderful programming animals for us, so you can see. So I'm going to step off camera and see if Larry eats a little bit more. He's kind of looking at it right now, I can tell. But maybe the extra camera and the light is making him a little nervous. So I hope you've enjoyed our wildlife programs from the behind the scenes of the summer 2021, behind the scenes of our Tales Will Tale for the reading program of our Tales and Tales, which is one of those words that is spelled two different ways and has two different meanings, but actually sounds the same. It's a homogram. So, Larry, why don't you eat? You're killing me right now. Everybody's watching you. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this worth of videos with the herbivorous, exotic, invasive green iguana, Larry. Thank you, friends. You can always follow us online at animalogy.org or any Facebookers. If you are a fan of the company and you enjoy the way we give our programs, go ahead and fan the company and follow our videos from there. We also have a number of videos on our YouTube page, and you can watch more information as we post them. Thank you. Hello, friends. Again, this is Bob Tarter with Animalogy Acres for one of our behind-the-scenes summer 2021 our Tales Will Tell Our Tale wildlife programs. Now, one of my friends that I have with me today is going to be Randy, the venomous Gila monster. Now, the cool thing about Randy here is he has a story or tale to tell you about his tail. And that is what is an animal's job. Everything in the wild has a job they're supposed to do, and that is called a niche. And the first thing you can start training yourself is to theorize the niche by the way an animal looks. Now, when Randy looks at the camera, you can see he has two eyes close to the front part of his head, where Larry, the iguana, had it on the sides of his head. That's going to be the key difference for you. Now, this is going to be a carnivore. This is one of two venomous lizards from the desert Southwest. I get upset when I read children's books and they have it wrong. There is no such thing as a poisonous snake. You can eat any snake. I've actually done that before. But what we have right here is a very cool venomous lizard from the desert Southwest. He has a long body that is brightly colored, that is wide. You see it's kind of thin. And this is one of our cold-blooded reptiles that is going to use that to help him out. In the desert, there may not be much food or water every year, so you have to use that cold-blooded nature to help you survive. Two eyes in front of the head, large sense of smell right there, big olfactory senses, good sense of hearing, but you've been watching Randy, and Randy will actually stick out that tongue. This is where an animal is tasting the air. Books have that wrong too. You smell with your nose, you taste with your tongue. He takes that large forked tongue, flicks it through the air, pulls that scent-laden particle tongue to the inside of his body. Once it's on the inside of the body, there's a hole in the roof of the mouth called the Jacobson's organ. He sticks his tongue right in there, and that's right below the brain, and the brain will then process that. Now, what this guy will do, being a brightly colored venomous animal, is he can actually intimidate a lot of people because they've learned not to mess with him. In the spring, we may have a nice rainfall event, and what happens is all the wildflowers will start blooming, all the plants will start reproduction, and mammals and birds will do that. And that's when this brightly colored venomous lizard will start walking around looking for food. Now, if he finds a ground nesting animal, it could be a squirrel, it could be a mouse, it could be a songbird, it could be a game bird, he will walk right up to that nest because he can smell it. or taste it or hear it or even see it. And when he walks up to that nest, the parents will look at this brightly colored venomous creature and go, you know what? We can always make more babies. And the parents will abandon the nest, and he will actually walk into that nest and eat all of the eggs, all the babies in that nest that he can find, and then he converts it into fat where he stores it in his tail. If you could squeeze this right now, this tail feels like a raw bratwurst or a sausage. And he will be able to store food and water in that tail to be able to survive. He may only get to eat a week or two in the spring and survive 50 weeks on the fat deposits in his tail alone. Because if there's a year where there's not much water, not much food, he will spend more time buried underneath the soil. These front claws and everything will dig underneath the soil, and he will bury himself underneath a rock ledge. But if there is a lot of food and a lot of water that year, he will spend more time sitting outside absorbing that solar radiation. The warmer he is, the faster he can move, the more food he can eat. Now, Randy is a very sweet little boy. His venom actually comes from the lower jaw. He has venom glands right there, and the lower teeth on that mandible are actually hollow. When he bites into something, he holds on to it. Now, I have been bitten by Randy before. I was picking some skin off his face once. And normally if an animal bites me, I just stay nice and calm and relaxed, and I wait for them to let go. With this being a venomous creature, I jerked my thumb right out of his mouth because his venom will leach into an animal. Using the capillary action of water, the venom will go into it. He has a coagulating venom, and that venom will clot blood. Now, you all know that I'm a little weird. I own that. When I was a little kid, I saw this really cool experiment where they took a 3-quart container of fresh horse blood. They dropped in 3 drops of venom. They waited 90 seconds, and they flipped the beaker over, and the blood slid out like a solid Jell-O mold. For any parents that are tuning in, think of that cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving. Now you can think of me on Turkey Day. And that's what his venom will do. It'll clot the blood. Now, he doesn't need this for his prey. He just uses this to protect himself. Now, if I get bitten by Randy, I'm not going to go to the hospital, but we've established the fact that I'm a little weird. But if I get bitten by him and I get venom in my hand, the blood in my fingers and my hand will actually turn to like pudding. They will become oxygen starved, and the tissue will turn black and necrotic, and eventually it'll fall off. This entire time, I don't feel very good, but then I will teach my offspring, do not mess with brightly colored creatures that aren't afraid of you. The venom from the Gila monster has now been synthesized to come up with medication to help treat diabetes, as well as battlefield dressings for soldiers. So if you have a soldier bleeding out and you cannot put a tourniquet on it, they now have a bandage and blood clotting agent that will clot the blood, and that'll save the lives for our people. So this is definitely a very cool carnivorous venomous animal from the desert Southwest. His hide feels like either a brand new basketball or like a beaded change purse, if you've ever felt it. Feels just like beads. And the tail on this animal will tell you his tail. That is when he will be able to store food and water in that for him to be able to survive almost a year if he needs to. So we have one of 2 venomous lizards. Poison is when you eat something bad. Venom is when things get injected in your body. Now, most of you that are tuning in, we only have 3 venomous snake species in our area, and they're easily identifiable by the hourglass, the oval-shaped pupil on their eye. And they're not here to hurt you. This guy here doesn't want to bite me. There's no reason to it. I'm not food. Doesn't that feel good, buddy? But they will protect themselves if they need to. I know, that feels so good. All right, friends, we're going to be able to put Randy down, and we will get out our next animal for you to see. And we'll also show you the animal care that it takes to house all of the animal ambassadors here at Animalogy Acres. So if you have any questions, you can always reach me online. Any of you that are Facebookers, you can follow the company on Facebook, and that'll tell you when we're doing virtual programs or where we may be able in your area to be doing a live in person for this summer. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our summer reading program 2021 behind the scenes of Animalogy with our Tales Will Tell Our Tale scene. All right, friends, this is Bob Tarter here. We have our wonderful neodesic cage where we keep a lot of our reptiles in. You can see there's a very specific light up there on the top left that will give the UVA, UVB wavelength that we need to give the correct indoor situation to be able to give our animals the nutrition that they need from the light source. Now, what I'm going to try and do here, we have Randy on the left that's moving a little bit. Faye is looking at the camera right now. I'm hoping that Faye is actually full of some eggs, but we will be able to follow that up later. Faye's moving a little bit more right now. So with our carnivores here, we'll be able to feed them a wonderful variety of food. And what I like to do is we'll sit there and see Faye's got it. I jiggle it a little bit to let her think that she's attacking that prey. And then we'll be able to do the same thing for Randy over here on the left. Now, we do have to be a little careful because we don't want these two animals trying to eat the same prey at the same time. There you go. Randy's got him. They do that little head shake. You can see that these are going to be reptiles that eat their prey whole, and they'll be able to swallow that in. Now, right now, we have this enclosure set up because we're hoping that Faye will lay her eggs. So we've got some nice sand set in there for her. We have a small water bowl, and I don't have too much else in there right now because I don't want her to be able to hide eggs from me. Because once she has those eggs, I want to be able to collect them, and then we will be able to incubate them to continue this species for us. So you can see that they swallow that food whole. It doesn't matter if there's little mice or a little sand in there. These are desert dwelling animals, and they can handle that in their diet, as well as a little roughage. Never hurt any of us going there. So you can see Faye and Randy eating that prey whole. Faye is swallowing hers. Randy's a little bit slower in the uptake of it. He needs to find the head, and that's going to be the greatest way to be able to swallow it. You can see the little bit of sexual dimorphism. That's the difference between the boys and the girls. Randy has a wider head, and he personally has a calmer personality than Faye. Faye is one of these that I don't program her that much. I don't want you to go after Randy's. Here you go. Here's another one. You want another? Oh, there you go. Get that mouse. Get that mouse. And so I'll jiggle it a little bit because I want my animals to get accustomed to eating pre-killed, frozen, thawed prey. These are captively bred mice that have been raised just for the purpose of being a food source for our carnivores. Faye, hopefully, like I said, with her being this eager and this happy to eat, she will lay those eggs for us. And then once we get the eggs, we'll be able to put them in our incubator and we'll be able to swallow them from whole. Or sorry, we'll be able to hatch the eggs. You can see how she's swallowing that whole. She's a little bit better. Randy, you got the wrong part of him. Come on. Get that animal. Come on. Randy's probably not as hungry because Randy has been traveling with me right now. And I like my animals when they're traveling on the road to be very full of their food so that there's no reason for them to be upset or anything like that during our program. Now, this is in Animalogy Acres in the downstairs where we keep a lot of our animals. We have a 3-tier neodesic here, but Faye is doing quite well on that one. Randy is still kind of mouthing and gobbing that one, just like a toddler with a graham cracker. You can watch that tail go down. It'll go just down like a little noodle of spaghetti. If Faye gets that down, I'll actually offer her a third one because we want her as happy as she can be. No, don't go after Randy. He's eating his own. Come over here. There you go. There's one more over here if you want, honey. Yeah, keep eating. Here. I'm a cute little mouse. You can see they're not moving very fast. They conserve calories and water by moving slow and steady. So they're not going to be able to, strike at me like you would with our other animals. Randy's finally got his going down his mouth. He's trying to eat it sideways. So again, we have Faye here on the right, and we have Randy there on the left. These are actually named after some very, very long-time friends of mine that have helped me throughout my life, serving as surrogate or pseudo-parents at some point in time, that now have a retirement place in Arizona, and they're very big golfers. So whenever we started getting the Gila Monster, I sent pictures to Randy because Gila Monsters can be found in the golf courses down there in Arizona or New Mexico, and golf balls look a lot like eggs. So I didn't want my friend Randy to go ahead and try and retrieve a golf ball only to be able to find that a venomous Gila monster would be trying to eat it. Snakes have been known to eat eggs on golf courses before, and we have to do either surgery to help them get that out of their bodies. Randy, do you want one more? Randy, here. I know. You're a little colder because you did that program with me. Here. Faye, of course, is eating a lot because she's taking a lot of that energy, a lot of the calories to make those eggs for us. Come here, buddy. You want one more? There you go, buddy. So here's our sexual dimorphism, meaning you can see the difference in the appearance of the males and the female. Now you can see that in lots of different animal species, and it's apparent with these guys because of the size of their body and the shape of their heads for us. Randy has a much larger head. Now his color probably isn't as vibrant or salmon color as Faye because Randy's been on the road with me visiting and doing programs where Faye has been able to stay here in her enclosure. You gonna drink some water, love? No, let him eat his dinner. You don't need to help him out with any of that. So again, this is our captive, hopefully breeding pair of the Gila monsters that are found in the desert Southwest. That extremely beautiful hide will help them. No, you don't need to eat his food. You had enough. But once we're able to hopefully collect the eggs from this year, we will incubate them and then they will be available. A couple of them will stay here at Animalogy as continuing the line of our captively bred Gila monsters. Some of them, if you have the experience and you're interested in something like a venomous Gila monster, they are legal in the state of Tennessee, but you will have a very, very hard interviewing portion with me to be able to get one of my captively bred animals. You can see how wide she looks in her body right here. Hopefully she's full of eggs. Soon we're going to take her into our veterinarian and we will be able to perform a ultrasound on her to see if we can find the eggs inside of her. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the Gila monsters, Randy and Faye, as our Gila monsters that are in our captive breeding program, as well as our animal ambassadors for Animalogy.